Stella Boscovich.
Good morning again. I hope some of you that were here for our earliest session, I do see faces that have stuck around. Thank you. We're going to be talking identity for those of you who just joined us. Our entire day is going to be focused on what constitutes identity, how it will function in the new business models, the new market, data liquidity, and the fact, or at least I'm going to call it a fact, it is an operating hypothesis, that our identity will be the new form of capital wealth in the coming years. And to kick us off, we're going to be starting with Facebook. All of that data that we give to Facebook, all of its abilities to predict what we like, what we want, what we should see, all of those fun little algorithms that operate in the back of their system, popping us with new ideas and ads and connections and people we know. What is it, and how is it they're able to do that? What is it that they can predict? Why can they do that? And why do they seem to know us better than we know ourselves? So to begin this day, I would like to introduce our next speaker. This gentleman is the director of Shared Lab, which is a research foundation nonprofit that actually looks at the intersection of technology and society and how we can keep it open sourced, transactionally equal, that it has a social conscience, that we actually understand how technology impacts our ability to operate in this world at a very human level. I'm very, very pleased to introduce Professor Vladan Joler. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. So, my name is Vladan Joler. I'm working at the university in Novi Sad in Serbia, but also I'm running one really small, independent, indie lab. And basically this lab, what we like to think about ourselves as some kind of detectives. And inside of this lab, we are like exploring different kind of invisible infrastructures. So we started first with like exploring how the networks looks like. So this is one of the networks in our neighborhood, and we tried to map this, to try to understand how it looks like. Because when we are speaking about the internet, most of the time, we are like speaking about some terms as a cloud or something like this, but basically behind that there is like huge infrastructure that is most of the time invisible for us as a users. So what we started to do, we started some kind of journey into different forms of invisible infrastructures. And first one was mapping different internet service providers, for example. And then we understood, okay, it's not just about networks, it's not about internet service providers, but also when we are visiting different websites, there is different kind of cookies on different technologies that are embedded in those websites that are basically sharing our what we are doing and our online behavior with a lot of different companies. So we entered into this journey of mapping this kind of surveillance capitalism. So, for example, what we also found out, so there are like, on one side you have companies that are collecting data, but on the other side there is also like different governments, and we know all of those stories about Snowden and everything what happened. But also we were trying to try to understand how this looks like, and also to try to write different stories and try to explain to people how, for example, different government agencies are collecting metadata and what you can learn from there. And then we were following, this is one of my favorite research, we were following one group, one organization called Hacking Team, and this organization was creating different forms of software and different tools for different governments to hack into our accounts. So this is, for example, and what we did, we were able to collect metadata from the communication of this company, and then we were trying to follow using the almost same methodology that, for example, NSA is using for analyzing metadata. We were doing similar things, but following the kind of bad guys of the internet. So this is like, for example, director of the company, and based on the different forms of anomalies in his behavior, we were able to track when he's traveling and where and how and so on, so on. Really interesting journey. So then what we were also doing, like we were like trying to spot different anomalies in comments around infosphere, mostly in Serbia in this moment. So for example, those big bubbles represent the comments that were produced by different bots, different like political actors, and basically those are the mistakes that they are making. So we were trying to track different artificial political agents that were trying to influence elections in Serbia. But then all of those different stories, different research led us into investigating something that was like really important for us. So, like year or 2 years ago, started some like really hot topic within the community. So we are mostly, within like activist community in Europe, not so much on events like this. So there was like one topic like really appearing, and that was the topic about algorithmic transparency. So we started to be aware how algorithms are really important if we want to defend our different forms of human rights in the future, and different. So we understood that because like more and more our social communication or business communication, it's mediated by technology, and mostly when we are speaking about this technology, it's a black boxes in between. So we don't know. We know what is the input, we know what is the output, but we, in most of the cases, don't know what is in between. And this is why algorithmic transparency is important, because this is the way how to see inside and how to understand the different processes that are happening between us in communication. So we started one project that was called Inside Facebook Algorithmic Factory, in order to understand and try to see what one independent group of researchers can basically know about what is going on inside of those black boxes. So I think this is like from 2 years ago, but so there is 1.6 billion active users in 2015. So if we are comparing this with the countries around the world, so it's bigger than China. China have 1.3, and India have 1.2. United States, it's 5 times bigger than United States. Okay, and it's 223 times bigger than Serbia. So it's really a lot. And basically, if we are thinking about Facebook as a country, so is it like democracy? Is it like, what is it? Like what kind of like, what we as the users, how we can communicate with this like imaginary government, And there is not a lot of ways to do that. So there is 1 billion log into Facebook every day. There is 300 petabytes of user data. 1.1 trillion likes since 2004. 4.5 billion likes every day. 3.1 million likes per minute. 1 billion location tagged posts every day. 350 million uploaded photos every day. So now big numbers. I'm trying to, like produce some like, oh, wow. 4.7 billion items shared each day. 10 billion messages sent each day. So this is on the left side. And what is on the right side? It's a revenue in 2015, for example, that is around almost $18 billion. So what we are thinking is that this black box defines new forms of labor, exploitation, and generation of enormous amount of wealth and power for the owners of this invisible immaterial factory, creating deep economic gap between the ones who owns and control the means of production and the users who really often live below the poverty line. So I'm all the time referring to Serbia because I'm coming from Serbia, but it's okay. It's some small country it's kind of on the border of European Union, we can say that. So if you are thinking about this an enormous amount of wealth, this is like if each worker in Serbia work for 1 year, it will be enough. So it's like 3.5 million annual wages in Serbia. It's a lot. So, and then there is something that it's called immaterial labor. Those are the concepts from like beginning of 2000 something that are saying that when we are, for example, uploading, sharing, writing something on platforms like Facebook or doing something on internet, we are basically performing immaterial labor. We are working for Facebook. So, and if each person spend around 20 minutes per day on Facebook, but this is like probably each of you who use this know that probably it's even more than 20 minutes. That's around 300 million of free working hours per day that we, as the users, are donating to this huge immaterial factory. So, and then we were thinking, okay, how we can explore, how we can understand this immaterial factory. So what we did, we tried to do some kind of like analysis of board of director of Facebook and how they are connected, like top management and who study where and tra-la-la, la-la-la. So we made some kind of map of interaction between them. And then you can explore different relation between, I don't know, Peter Thiel or Mark Andersen and so on. But this is something that as a methodology was used like really long time ago. And I'm not so sure that we can learn a lot about that, except that they're really everywhere. Like covering, for example, like small investment, big investment, venture capital, and all of you know all of those words for these kind of things, not me. And then other thing what we did, like we tried to understand the people who are working at Facebook, and from someone from the outside, what we did, we scrape all the LinkedIn accounts and try to understand for all of those people from where they're coming, where they're working now, to which universities they went. And there was also nothing special that we found there, except, and maybe this is also not so special, like lower you are on this pyramid, it's kind of democratic, and there are people from a lot of places in the world and a lot of universities, like in international, but more you are on the top of the pyramid, it's mostly like American universities, like that you probably already know. But the real mystery is this, and this is something that is like a core of our research, and this is how basically our behavior is transformed into the profit, how they're doing that. And this is, it's black because it's a black box, you know. So we are starting from here. So let me go back just a second. So on the left side of the map, you have inputs into this factory. Here you have how the data is stored. Here you have different kind of algorithms that are being used. And here you have different forms of targeting that basically they are doing. So let's start from the left part of the map. So the core data input into this factory, it's based on our actions and behaviors. So this is what we do. Okay. So what we can do, we can like, share, search Facebook, view posts, check in, post links, write the comments, and all of those things. So what we did, we mapped all the different things that you can do on Facebook and try to create some kind of drawing out of this. Okay. The second big part is the profile information. So it's basically what you think about yourself. So, and for Facebook, this is kind of, it's okay as a source of data, but even in some texts, they're stating that for them it's more about actions and behavior. Because in profile information, you can lie. This is your opinion about yourself. You can say that you are male, female, whatever, that you went to this school, but you didn't. But for them, that can be lie. But what you do, this is what defines yourself. So different forms of information that you're giving. But then the third big part, it's something that we like to call digital footprint, and it's basically what your devices are saying about you. So devices are giving a lot of information about type of equipment that you are using, but also like a lot of data that can be collected from different sensors in your mobile phone and so on, so on. And this is one side, your device. But then on the other side, there is like a huge network that is created by use of cookies, pixels, and similar technology that is basically covering the 50% of the globe, so 50% of the internet. So on almost half of the websites that are out there, there are some form of cookies from Facebook being embedded in those websites. So, and then, for example, this is we try to map all the different permissions that you are giving to Facebook when you are installing different kind of apps that Facebook produced. So those are, I don't know, like access to camera, microphone, they can record audio, photos, media, phone. So basically they have access to everything. But this is something that you gave them you gave them permission to do. Not in all the cases, because sometimes those applications come with a mobile phone, already pre-installed, no? So even you didn't said agree, 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 they have chance to access all of those data. This is some kind of drawing that we made, like mapping different kind of trackers that are embedded in those websites. And this is, so we analyze like top 100 websites that people are visiting, and then we were able to understand that on 90% of those websites there are some Google cookies, on 46% Facebook cookies. And then there is like huge network of amount of data that Facebook is able to collect from different companies that they acquired, or different marketing partner organizations. So those are all the companies that they bought. So this is on the one side. On the other side, so I always like to think, so for example, what Chomsky is saying about traditional newspapers. He said, like, the final product of the newspaper, it's not the newspaper itself or the magazine itself. It's basically the public that is being, the users, the readers that are being sold to the advertisers. No? So, but in traditional media, when we are speaking about, for example, traditional newspaper or magazines, you have like one defined group. So, for example, the readers of these magazines are mostly females, this age, from those countries, and so on and so on. But when we are speaking about Facebook, each individual user can be sold separately. So this is the big difference. And we are calling this nano targeting. So they're able to basically sell each individual users or small groups of users to different advertisers. And we created some kind of like map on which different basics they can do this. So age, gender, location, but also some sensitive topics as ethnic affinity. And they say it's affinity. It's like I have affinity towards this kind of minority or so on and so on. Then based on life events, and it really goes deep into that. So they're like able to connect different little life events that happen in your life and try to sell you as a person who had this kind of event. So the strongest one, it's, you know, this story about getting the baby. So there was like one American professor. She was like trying to hide her pregnancy from the internet, and then she was able to do that for like 9 months. But then just someone, when she gave birth, someone said, "Congratulations, tra la la," and from that moment, her like screen was full of advertising that was related to. So it's not so easy. Also, they're able to target people based on their political affiliations. And a lot of other forms of detailed targeting that are based on different interests and different behaviors that you do. Different types of technology that you use. When and how you use different networks. When and how you're traveling. And we will come to the moment to understand how they are doing this. So, and then what we were thinking? We were thinking that, okay, now on the left side we have all the inputs, on the right side we have all the outputs, and we have this kind of really naive idea that we were able to connect them and to understand from which data, which output it's coming, but basically that was kind of stupid. So, but finally what happened to us, we found around 7,000 to 8,000 different publicly available patents, and we started to read them in order to find the places for each patent and to understand how different patents fit into this huge drawing. So basically what they're doing, it's there is something that's called Action Store, and I will not go into detail because you can read this after on our website, and it's also maybe too technical, but Action Logger, it's collecting information from your actions and then putting in something that's called Action Store. Then there's something called Content Store. There is something called Edge Store. And then all of this, it's forming something that is called Social Graph. And so how this is functioning, basically, each person is one node, and each event that one person create, each photo, each whatever, become another node. And then Facebook, it's able to create one huge social graph that is connecting different people, different users with different posts, different photos, and then this allowed them to analyze this in different ways. Okay. And then based on this, you have now this is the moment when different algorithms are trying to play with this data that is gathered there. So you have, and it's going from the two different sides. From one side, they are trying to understand what you are doing, and on the other side, they're trying to understand the ad. And then trying through some kind of matching and they're trying to extract different kind of actions and different kind of topics from one side, and from the other side to do the same with the ad. And then they're doing some kind of fuzzy matching between those different sides. So they're extracting different keywords from text, from photos, from different, any kind of content that you create, and then trying to match this in some form of taxonomy, how those different keywords are fitting together, and then trying to basically form idea about what you are doing. So there are a lot of different algorithms out there. So, for example, identifying content in electronic images, tracking source and usage of media assets, social data recording, system methods for social mapping, determining influence in a social network system, so on and so on. But there are a few that I really like. It's for example, targeting based on the social connection. So what they are doing, they're trying to understand, for example, if this person have those friends, and this friend is, for example, a Republican, this one is Democrat. If they are not able to understand who is he, then they have different algorithms trying to understand his social connections and trying to understand, is he more Democrat or Republican, for example. And then another favorite one is the routine estimation. So each time where you are, for example, logging into Facebook, you're giving location from where you logged in. And then Facebook is trying to understand. So for example, every morning you are logging in at home, and then you are logging in at job, and then going to pick your kid, and then trying to understand the places where you are where you are logging in, and then trying to understand what is home, what is job, what is kids' school. And then, based on this, they can understand the routines. So you're doing this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then when you know routines, then you can extract anomalies. And this is something that they are able to do. So for example, they are able to understand like all of those places. And then if you start to make anomalies, this is the signal for them that you're, for example, traveling or you're doing something different in your life. And then they're able to understand like how much you earn or to which social group you belong. And this is not just based on your financial transactions. It's like in which part of the city you live, what kind of music you're listening, to which events you're going, and so on, so on. All of those informations together are becoming the part of this process of targeting you, and on the other side, like putting you into some kind of niche or some kind of like social category, and then attaching the price to you. So it depends on which, what kind of music and where do you live and how much do you spend, you have a price. Okay. A lot of different other interesting algorithms out there, but at the end, I just want to close this. It's like, so okay, we have a map, and this map, it's like really complex, and it's really also not so precise. And it's not a map that you should like read and say, okay, I will go into this direction. Why it's not precise? Because like different patterns belongs to different periods and different, it's really hard to do that. But still, it's the only map that exists out there. And I really like to think about those maps as some kind of ancient maps in which, for example, I don't know, America is still not discovered. Or like the Africa doesn't look so precise. So, and this is the problem of algorithmic transparency. Our capacity to understand what's going on inside of those even now probably this looks like, oh, we can know what is going on there. No, there is no way. This is some kind of abstraction. And our capacity to understand what's happening in the inside of those black boxes is really limited, especially with the fact that Facebook and other big companies have a power and financial means to buy the biggest experts that are out there. So just imagine that, for example, some government regulator or whoever will need to hire some, I don't know which number of data scientists in order to examine what's going on within those black boxes. So I think I will stop here for the moment, and yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ladan. To actually translate that for us, for those of you who need someone that speaks banker and what the implications are, I'd like to introduce our next guest speaker. He is actually the managing partner for 11FS. If you're familiar with their podcast, it's FinTech Insiders. He is one of the hosts. He's also an industry vet and thought leader, and I call him brother, Sam Mull.
All right, so I had the interesting challenge of taking all of that data and everything you learned and applying that for bankers in 10 minutes. So drink coffee, get geared up. Here we go, 3 points. In order to do that, what I want to do is, we're talking about identity and what identity means. So I want to flip it a little bit and say, what does your identity as a banker mean and how is it changing? And to do that, I'm going to build on what Kevin and also the Admiral started this morning. They used history lessons. So Kevin talked about coffee in the introduction of that. The Admiral was talking about the pioneers. So we're going to go a little bit farther back, and we're going to talk about Babylon in 329 BC, everybody's favorite topic. Okay, anybody from Babylon? Didn't think so. Okay, yeah, somebody is. All right, so in 329 BC, Babylon was the largest city in the world. It was the cornerstone, it was the anchor of one of the largest empires in the world. So bankers, yes, I'm comparing you to Babylon, okay? You had your run, they had a good run. It was a great run, you still do, but they were a massive empire at the time. But one of the mistakes they made in their own identity was this legacy mindset they had. And a mistake that you have right now is your legacy mindset, is that we have been here forever and a day. We're all powerful. We're going to be fine. and missing what was coming at them. Because what happened in 329 BC, in literally one night, the city was conquered. A city that never, ever should have been conquered, no one thought could. And by the way, without a battle, interestingly enough. And it was something they should have seen coming. The Persians under Cyrus the Great were making a ton of noise. They were watching them, and they way underestimated what was coming at them. And what I want to warn you about, I'm not calling Facebook an enemy of yours whatsoever, or the other tech companies, but you just saw the mountain of data that they sit on and the client base that they have, and this is a wave that is coming at you right now. And so the excuse to say we didn't see it coming doesn't fly. Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of it, who had outsourced the defense to his son Belshazzar, they should have been well aware of what was about to hit them. So your legacy mindset is one about your identity. The second one is your defenses. And this is really where Babylon messed up. So at the time, one of the seven wonders of the world, you had the hanging gardens, you had the city walls that were around this. That's what Babylon was known as. It was the Titanic of the day. It couldn't sink. It was impenetrable. They had 3 walls, not one wall, 3 walls. There's estimates that the walls went anywhere from 50 to 100 feet high. That's massive. 50 feet wide enough for the equivalent of an Escalade back then, of a 4-horse chariot, to ride the city walls and turn. That is incredible. 250 towers surrounding this, 25 gates, heavily fortified. On the night before they were conquered, a couple days before that, there was a battle called Opis, where the Persians kicked the butt of the Babylonians. They lost. But the Babylonians under Belshazzar fled back into the city gates, shut it, and said, we're going to be okay. Because we have all this, nobody can penetrate it. And here's what they did wrong. They were dependent upon legacy defenses. In banking, by the way, you do that all the time. You got the regulatory side of this, right? The tech companies don't understand what they're going to be facing. Our customers love us. We've been around forever and a day, and that's the model. We lean back in that old banking model. It's exactly what the Babylonians did, with the mindset they had. The interesting thing with Babylon and Cyrus the Great, how he conquered it, he didn't do it with an army. He did it with engineers. Hello, Facebook. He did it with engineers. He took the Euphrates River, which runs right through the heart of Babylon, split the city in half. It was the lifeblood of the city. Cyrus the Great took his engineers, he diverted the river, and they walked right into the city. The citizens woke up and looked around and went, well, hey, Cyrus, how you doing? Done. Battle over. Yes, I'm equating the Euphrates River to your data and that you sit on, 100%. It's the lifeblood of the banking industry, the mountains of data, transactional data we sit on. And forever and a day, when you come to conferences like this, you've been hearing how we're not maximizing that data. We're not maximizing the engagement model. We're not paying enough attention to it. But what I'm going to challenge you with, what you just saw, that's just one data element. Transactional data is fantastic, and it tells you a lot about a customer. It can tell you how they live their lives. You really want to know Sam Mall? Get my browsing history. Please don't. For the love of God, don't do that. But if you want to know somebody, look at their browsing history. Then combine that with their transactional history and look what they're doing. And look at the pictures. Wherever the professor's at, a mountain of data on pictures. I can't remember what you said, 350 million a day? Something ridiculous, all right? All the selfies that Gela keeps taking during this conference, right? Constantly, yeah, you are, constantly getting uploaded. And what is interesting with Facebook and others, the AI that they're using to interpret that, right? There's a whole component of AI that is looking at images and translating that. Something, by the way, for a bank, good luck on doing that, all right? So just the image component they have to understand someone's life. So that idea of the data being opened up and being breached, Babylon, again, breached by the river, right? Breached by the data. PSD2 in Europe. Open bank, yeah, these guys smiling, you must be an API guy. So PSD2 in Europe, right? What we're seeing as standards being set throughout Asia, throughout Africa, take your pick, and will hit the US. No matter how hard we try not to let someone in, that data is going to be opened up. So again, that legacy defenses, you can't rely on those. That is changing. So what does that mean for you? The last thing I would say, what the Babylonians missed, they missed the big picture. And I think a lot of people in banking are too. The big picture was for Persia, it wasn't Babylon. Yes, they had to conquer it, But that wasn't the big deal, and they used the river to do it. But they were building out a world empire. The Persians went on to have a massive empire. Babylon was just a stepping stone. It was one component, and they used the Euphrates River to do it. That was great. The interesting thing about the Euphrates River is it flows. It's a tributary. It flows into the Persian Gulf. It's a river that feeds the ocean. Your data, that's just one data element that feeds into a massive ocean that is fed mainly on the social media side and your digital footprint. There is so much that lives there. When you can combine all of that, that's when you win. All those data elements to get a picture of your customers and an engagement model. So what would I suggest to you? I am a consultant, so if I was hired by Nebuchadnezzar, it's a real easy message. Go partner with Cyrus the Great. The hell is wrong with you? Why are you going to war with this guy? Why not partner up, work with him, and see what you can do with all the data that you own, with all the elements that you own, and go that way. So for those of you that are terrified to open up your defenses and are terrified of open banking, it is coming. It's already here in most of the world. It's coming, and it's actually okay. All right? I know a lot of you are going, oh God, data breaches, data breaches, data breaches. Yes. To continue on with the theme that we started this morning with the Admiral, I'm also ex-Navy, as you can tell by looking at me. All right? I spent 10 years in submarines. A lot of respect for the Admiral. Let me tell you something very interesting about submarines. They all leak. Anybody on a boat? They all leak. Subs leak. You can't be terrified to go 1,000 feet underwater knowing that your ship leaks. It does. That's part of life. Guess what? You're going to get breached. Not if, when. It's going to happen. So the excuse about protecting your customer data, you have to. I agree 100%. But to use that as your main reason why you're not going to partner is an excuse. 100%. It's an excuse. So 3 things you have to address. Your legacy mindset, all right? Your identity of what a bank is. Banking's moving to a verb, all right? We know that. We talked about data being the new oil. Yes, it is. I mean, that's where we're moving to. The definition of what a bank and banking is changing like crazy and being impacted by the large tech companies mainly, I would say right now. It's that legacy mindset, your legacy defenses, being terrified of opening up the data. You have to. Welcome to the new world, okay? And it will help you out. It'll get you into business models. It'll get you into revenue streams you hadn't thought of. A good example of that, Goldman Sachs and their Marcus product. Goldman Sachs is killing it when it comes to fintech, when it comes to going out and investing and playing with the different players. Marcus is a great example of that. Marcus is a loan product in the US that Goldman Sachs is targeting to a whole user group they never had as customers before. Because Goldman Sachs, their customers typically look just like you. Very nice suits. I used to wear them. They're nice. All right, that they wanted the high wealth side. They have a whole revenue model coming in because they opened it up a little bit and thought differently. You can do the same. You can build on that. There's example after example of that within the industry, which gets back to my last point, partnerships. That's the new world, all right? The idea of open banking, of the marketplace, of looking for valid and great partners so that you're not displaced. Great lessons from the Babylonians. Gela, I think we want to do a quick Q&A.
I think we have time for one quick question from the audience, and if you don't, I have questions for Sam and for Vladan. Would you like to come back up or stay up here, gentlemen? Any questions from the audience? No? Excellent. It's all mine. There is. James has a question. James.
Throw it at me? Oh, I was
No.
looking forward to fumbling that microphone.
Stand up, man.
Oh, great. Okay, but what do we think the chances of some of this stuff getting shut down from a regulatory perspective are? So what I mean by that is I think, the banks have gone through, this cycle of the last 10 years and so on and so forth, and everyone keeps talking about how the big social, and by the way, I'm coming from Asia, so I see this already in China. Yep. Everyone is talking about the big social or tech companies moving laterally into financial services, as they have done in China, Alibaba, Tencent, and so on. But I'll tell you why I don't buy that, because I think they're already coming under their own regulatory pressure in the tech world, and in fact, I expect that to intensify over the coming years. So their appetite for moving into financial services such that they come under more regulatory oversight, I just think is going to be limited. So what's your take on the next 5 years and the evolution of these big tech platforms relative to financial services?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Facebook wants to be a bank. And if that came across, I don't think they want to be a bank. All right? I also don't think Amazon, I don't think Alibaba.
Well, maybe Amazon.
Yeah, well, we'll put it over there, all right, as a retailer. But I don't believe that's it, but I believe that there's opportunities to use them for different cases and bring them in. One thing I do find interesting from the regulatory side, because we hammer this, and you know this, James. I mean, he heads up fintech for E&Y out in Asia, right? Yeah, I got a thumbs up. So you know this. One of the things we hammer, it doesn't matter if it's the US or it's Asia or everything else, on fintech companies is they don't understand the regulatory compliance side and the risks that we're doing. I'm an American. Let me give you 3 weeks ago. One of our major credit bureaus, Equifax, was hacked, and hacked through a stupid, not upgrading an Apache strut, a very basic patch. This is one of the largest credit bureaus in the US, one of the big three, Equifax. No excuse for it. They're going to be investigated, or are being investigated, by the SEC in the US, so the government regulatory body that oversees it. They're going to come and do an investigation on it. By the way, the SEC was hacked the same week. So what is then going to happen, and I'm not knocking Deloitte, I work for a consulting firm, but a company like Deloitte's going to get hired to come in and do a security audit. Oh, hell, they got hacked that same week. So this concept, by the way, that from a regulatory standpoint and only a banking standpoint and only the oversight and the consulting firms understand security, there's a polite term I'm not allowed to say right now, but I desperately want to say.
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans. There you go.
Shenanigans.
Bullshit. Sorry. Okay? You know this, and we deal with this. Banks, when they look at their legacy platform and moving off of them and getting into the 21st century, moving to AWS, for example. How many times have you heard they don't understand security? I guarantee you, Amazon and AWS understands the elements of data security. You know how well they do it, right? That's an excuse. I'll keep saying it, I don't think Facebook wants to be a bank. I don't believe they do. Do they want to be able to move payments? Well, hell yeah. That's a utility. That's what's going to move on those rails. So I think, again, those partnerships are going to be there. Amazon and Alibaba, let's put them over here, and that's a whole different conversation. But when it comes to Google, when it comes to Facebook, when it comes to Apple, the overlapping of industries gets fascinating. Work for you?
Yeah.
Good.
To pick up on that, aside from security, which is a massive, massive challenge, and it will perpetually be a challenge, and is again a matter of when, not if. Setting that maybe just aside, when we talk about GDPR, repackaging, data in new ways, creating new revenue streams through value-added services, and actually inherently following the letter of the law and the spirit of the law about maintaining privacy and the ownership of that data, where do you think banks can play best in this and actually get a foot in the door before anyone else, an outsider, or even those emerging technologies that are coming through the fintech streams, actually have a better play and move their business model towards something that provides a value-added service around data privacy?
Yeah, and then I would definitely want to throw this to the professor and not hog this. One of the roles I do think a bank has, and I really do mean that, is the whole concept of a vault. Okay, the idea of security and what you can provide. Because we do have literally hundreds of years of protecting our customers' assets. Whether it was the old vaults that we built, and now from a digital side, what we have to do with KYC, AML, PCI, take your pick, right? We should, I keep saying we, I'm an ex-banker, that's my fault. You should be fantastic at the data security side, right? I mean, that's all part of onboarding, is authenticating that user and getting them on. What I think would be interesting, and I'd like to see, and that's where I'd like the professor to feed in a little bit, is the idea of, what I always find amazing is I open an account with my bank, say Bank of America, but then I open up another account with Capital One, and yet I go through the whole process yet again. Nice. And that idea of passporting me from a digital authentication standpoint, and getting fed data from
sovereign identity, a portable sovereign identity.
Oh God, yeah, the whole concept of a digital passport.
But actually, Vladan, when we talk about this, I'm going to shift to the privacy aspect of it. If Facebook can see so much of what we do, and our behaviors and our thoughts are being translated into clicks on a digital footprint, what are some of the parameters we can take as individuals to be a little bit more private, but also how can we start to educate the financial community about what it takes to really tap into or shape or use that data that is being collected by Facebook, or the algorithms that we could then also adopt as an industry?
So, I don't know, I'm kind of going on more like dark side, like it's kind of my nature.
Most of us are on the dark side anyway.
Yeah, you know.
So, I don't think we can do a lot for them. Because, for example, like when we are speaking about Facebook, and then you say, like, is it exploitation of the user, is it not? But they say, okay, but people are doing this willingly. No one is pushing them to use Facebook. No one is pushing you to share so many of your private data with the rest of the world. But the thing is, like, do we really have an option now not to use it? Because the price of not using Facebook is high. Social price, like, you will be excluded from a lot of communication, from a lot of parties, whatever, And for example, I didn't had mobile phone for 6 months in one period of my life. And then my wife, everything went on her because people were trying to reroute communication. And then I understood that I'm making a problem for the people around me, because now they need to take my part of communication, and now I became someone who is not responsible. The problem is, like, and also with the thing, like, now, for example, in the United States, on the border crossing, they can check your Facebook account. And also when you are applying for visa, they can check your Facebook account. The thing is, not having Facebook account, is it like suspicious activity? Of course. So you are more suspicious if you don't have Facebook account. And then what that means? That means that we will need to build our profiles in a way that they fit to expectation of different governments, different companies. So if you are applying for a job, the first thing people do is to check your LinkedIn and Facebook account. So that means this is not anymore the place of freedom of expression, or whatever we call it. It's a place of our projection of our, like, who we think we are.
Our identity.
Exactly. And more, Facebook and other platforms are used for this kind of things. More and more we are going to behave. It's a means of social control, because we will need to behave in the.
There's the counterpart to that, and I'll wrap up this quickly. Thank you, gentlemen, by the way. And unfortunately, there's no time for more questions. But put this in the context of what it is for alternative credit scoring and financial inclusion.
There you go.
That if we have a Facebook profile, if we have a social media profile, we can start to see our behaviors mapping out a risk profile, and then we can actually start to include people who have never had access to traditional credit, bringing them in. So this is an important component of us thinking about the good, along with the social cost. Everything does have a price, but it can enable more financial inclusion. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Ladan. Much appreciated. Before we set off, thank you, please. Before we set off for the plenary, which is going to start, I encourage you all to go see the opening of Sibos. Let me remind you that there are a couple of things that you might want to stick around for. The first thing is to come back around 12:30, 12:45. We'll be kicking off our FinTech Hub conversation with our Canadian FinTechs. They will be here in residence, and we'll be doing the next session with them. The other thing is we have this in-depth magazine. If you actually want to learn a little bit more about the speakers that we have during the week, also their thoughts, we encourage you to pick this up. It'll be outside in the foyer. It is a limited run, exclusive publication. There are only 350 copies. Get yours while you can. The other thing I would also like to remind you of is that we are doing a fundraise, which will be matched by SWIFT, for the devastation that happened from the Mexico earthquakes. The coffee bar that is out here as we bring together the community is also raising for a community in Mexico. It's Save the Children. Please dig deep into your pockets and your hearts. All of that loose change will go to a very good cause. Thank you for your participation. We will see you back here at 12:30. Thank you very much.